Hello, I wanted to record this message for all of you. I appreciate your diligence in the course thus far and for completion of the Unit A module activities at the beginning of this week. So starting this week, you will have opportunity to Hello, I wanted to connect with you in a video message this week. I appreciate all of your energy and efforts with the initial Unit A and course orientation activities. I really enjoyed your comments related to the loss and grief activity. That activity was to help you understand perhaps how some of the family members and patients you care for might feel as their life is changed. So that is important as we look at this caregiver assignment, which will have different components that go through the course till near the end of the semester. So you all have been able to identify a caregiving scenario and a caregiver. I appreciate the submission of the caregiver identification and your overview briefly of that scenario that you have selected. Part of the assignment was to have identified the family member's diagnosis and how that diagnosis, with some details, might relate to caregiving. So it was more than potentially just describing the disease itself or identifying the disease, but kind of what that means from a caregiver perspective. So some of the things that would need to be considered related to the diagnosis. All of you did extremely well on that. However, probably about 50% of you lost 2 or 3 points on that particular section of the assignment. I don't think that you need to worry. In fact, I know you don't need to worry about the loss of points. I have never taught this class over my several years of teaching it, where students did end up with an A or A minus in the class. So don't stress over it, but pay attention to the assignment directions and requests for information. So upcoming assignment that is due on this upcoming Monday is your annotated bibliography and interview questions. So I wanted to just review that real quickly with you. Always read the assignment description and look at maybe what the outcomes are for each assignment. But in looking at the assignment directions, you will see that you need to refer to the annotated bibliography section in your APA 7th edition manual. The pages are 307 to 309. And as you click on this link here, you will also see that there's some additional supportive information as you go on down with some sample annotated bibliography entries. What you need to remember is that you must start your annotated bibliography with an APA 7th edition identification of the scholarly resource you're using. And then under that, you'll see that you're going to provide some sort of description, and you're going to provide 6 of those for this assignment. One of those annotated bibliographies can be related to the actual disease process, but the other 5 are related to caregiving generally. And here under this section right here, number 2, what you can see is that there are some potential ideas for your search if you have not yet identified those. Also, for each article, you must have 2 paragraphs, not 1 as was in the online resource. In the first paragraph, usually a paragraph's 4 or 5 sentences, you're going to provide some examples of the main points in that article you're reviewing related to caregiving, advocacy, and potentially significance to caregiving generally for your scenario. In the second paragraph is where you're going to take information from this first summary and then specifically provide it, add a description how it relates to the scenario and caregiving example that you have suggested. Once you've done that, so you'll have 6 annotated bibliographies one paragraph on the content of the article and one paragraph on the relevance for your caregiving scenario, you're going to go ahead and look at the part 2 right here, which is the interview questions. And what you need to submit for that category of this assignment is example questions that you would ask your caregiver. And there are some here, and you can create your own. You need to make sure that you do not start your interview until this annotated bibliography and the suggested interview questions are graded within the course. And it does say that right here for you. So just to help keep this in context, I thought we could go also to the caregiver paper assignment, which I'd like you to review. You're going to meet EPSLA number 4 for our BSN program of study, which is patient safety outcomes, and you must receive 80%, which is 120 points or higher, in order to pass this class. Having said that, and referring to course grades overall, there's not ever been any issue with students passing at 80%, and like I say, all of you should expect an A or an A- in the class depending on your energy and efforts and understanding of the assignments and discussions. So the content that will be provided in the paper are the description of the caregiver and family circumstances. There's some information related to that. You're also going to discuss briefly the chronic condition and give a short overview of how that condition and the circumstances relate to this assignment. Once you've done that, then you're going to generally describe a caregiver, and so your annotated bibliography article should help you do that. You also have several resources in the course that speak to advocacy. There are a lot of definitions of advocacy, and perhaps you might want to include in this section your particular perspective on advocacy or focus. And then during the interview, you're going to have opportunity to assess how the caregiver is advocating and negotiating or collaborating for the family member. You'll also next describe expected or usual resources for this caregiver, not the family member, but for the caregiver. However, some of those resources obviously are going to relate to the family member's diagnosis and personal situation. But again, this paper is focused on the caregiver and not the family member. And here in some different color text as above, you'll see some suggestions related to that. So for sections number 1 through 5, those are categories of the paper, and I suggest that you use those as subheadings in your paper when you write it. For the final section, you're going to describe how you as the caregiver, as the registered nurse might support the caregiver. So for sections 1 through 5, you must use third person. During section 6, we encourage you still to write it from the third person perspective, and that's just practice for APA generally. However, if you do need to use first person here, that is acceptable. And as you look down here, you'll also see there's some more information about the paper itself and a couple of resources for you. So returning to the course generally, let's go to the home page. What we're going to do is remind you that in this section, there's often information every week in an announcement to help you stay focused. You also have, I'm going to go to the assignments. Well, let's go to the modules section real quick. And what you see under each module is, obviously, we're now moving into Unit B. You'll see the learning module overview, which provides those mandatory articles for you to read since there's no textbook, and then some information on that unit. So for Unit B, you're going to participate in an education plan, and for Unit D, you're going to participate in a PowerPoint presentation. For both of those two assignments, as you already know, that is a group assignment, and you have a peer to work with through the semester. You've all designated your peers at this point in time, and I think the majority of you have also designated topics that education plan and genetic plan PowerPoint presentation, identification of your partner are due on Monday. However, you have opportunity still for another week or so to decide what your topics are if you have not yet decided that. I'm going to ask all of you to review that document before Monday night and make sure that the caregiver scenario diagnosis is different than your education plan diagnosis, and that both of those are different than the genetic PowerPoint presentation. So what I'm saying and what is required for this course is that for those 3 different assignments, you need to have a different chronic disease. And specifically for the genetic one, it will be a chronic disease associated with genetics. And as was also indicated in the course to this point in time, there is only one topic allowed, or one group allowed to address the topic in the education plan and in the genetic PowerPoint presentation. So make sure you look at that before you start any work, because if you're the second person signing up or second group, you will be asked to do a different topic related to the disease or diagnosis. So hopefully this helps you a little bit. I appreciate everything that you've done. I have graded your caregiver identification and scenario assignment as indicated, and I am working on the Unit A discussion. I think all of you are doing well on that. And just to reiterate, for each unit, there is an assignment and a discussion. You have up to 4 weeks to work on all of that information, but I do encourage you to work on it through each unit so that you're not doing it at the end. I think all of you are great. Let me know if you need anything, and I appreciate you.